Part two of the 750 action, another 20-lapper for the F1, and that is the result after the first leg. Rob McElnea took a storming win from Ray Stringer. John Reynolds held up the Kawasaki fortunes. Ron Haslam and Trevor Nation, Norton teammates, they'll be looking to go one better this time. And Steve Williams bringing another Yamaha in 6th place. So the fastest man in practice today, and that will hold good, of course. On pole position, Rob McElnea. Next to him is Ron Haslam on the Norton. Ray Stringer's in the middle. Reynolds and Jamie Witham, who fell in the 400cc race, but is out now carrying the on-bike camera. There's John Reynolds, the 750cc winner in the Spring Cup just last weekend. In the middle of the row, Ray Stringer, a storming ride to sneak 2nd place in leg 1. There is Ron Haslam, number 20 on the Norton, and in pole position, it's Rob McElnea, number 8 on the Loctite Yamaha. Reforming on the grid after the warm-up lap. The tail enders now coming up to the back. 40 riders, I remind you, go just under 40 miles, the full race distance. McElnea has to be the hot favourite, but the Nortons are so very, very fast. And maybe Haslam has just fine-tuned his bike just a touch to get a bit more speed down the back straight. But a charging start by Trevor Nation through from the 2nd row, and he eclipsed Ron Haslam off the line, but it's Rob McElnea hitting the front from John Reynolds. Ray Stringer was also well up there again. All the 750s safely away, and Rob Mac, well, Steve, he's doing it again.
He certainly is. I spoke to him earlier before the race and after the first race that he won, and he wanted to try and get a bit of a gap at the beginning, so that's obviously what he's trying to do. John Reynolds will be trying to stop him. As you see, the Kawasaki is pretty fast. It's keeping its distance, if not closing that gap as they go down there. Hard on the brakes as they go into the S's.
Well, John Reynolds has come on in leaps and bounds, and the Kawasaki pilot, he was the lone Team Green runner last year. But oh, I take an intake of breath there as Trevor Nation squeezes through into 4th place, and somebody going across the grass. That's number 39 heading for the Bales. That's Anthony Woodcock from Snetterton in Kent. All safe, he's safe and well, the bike is upright. Anthony Woodcock's upright, the rest of them, the other 39 runners, and he's rejoining the race, but sadly not a lot he can do about Rob McElnea, and there he is. All the visors up, but he's away, back through the Bales and onto the circuit. But McElnea then from John Reynolds, and I was saying before, Anthony Woodcock took his excursion that John Reynolds was the sole Team Green pilot last year, but he's been joined this year by Tim Bourne, number 33 from Ashford, and Tim Bourne gave a very creditable performance in the first leg and came through to hold the Team Green end up very well indeed. McElnea, the sole Loctite Yamaha man here. Terry Reimer's away on World Superbike duty, but look at that lead already. Yeah, that's a superb start he's got there. These machines, they use tyre warmers to keep these big, fat, slick tyres hot before the start of the race, and Rob's used them to great use. He's got a bit of a lead there, but Reynolds is hanging in there very, very well. Ron Haslam in 3rd position. And we're looking at Ron Haslam now, number 20. Well, he's obviously charged past his teammate, Trevor Nation. He was really motoring through. Nation now is down in something like 7th place. So Ron Haslam piling on the coals with the Norton now. Ahead of him is the vivid green Kawasaki number 6. There it is, John Reynolds. There's Ron Haslam. And teammate Trevor Nation is just 2 places, in fact 3 places behind him. Haslam hanging off the side of the Norton, putting the power on. This is just what team boss Barry Simmons would want to see, but he has to do a little bit more. In 4th place, it's number 15. That's Matt Llewellyn from Glenfield. Matt Llewellyn going well. He was performing well in the first leg, and he's doing it again. Just behind him, Ray Stringer, the man that was in 2nd position in the first leg, so he'll be keen to get past Matt Llewellyn. But Matt Llewellyn, another youngster, coming along really well. He's a great little rider. But the front 3 that you see now, they'll be representing our country in the match races on Bank Holiday Monday at Brands Hatch, so that will be a great scrap there. As John Reynolds, Rob McElnea and Ron Haslam are all in the team. Well, Sabre Office Furniture provided the bike that Matt Llewellyn is riding. It's been tuned and developed by Flitwick Motorcycles, but he makes the point that he's having to buy his own tyres this year. Well, it's tough at the top, Matt. You have to pay for something. He's really going. He's in front of Ray Stringer, number 17, going on really well. Stringer then second place it was in the first leg, but he's having to work hard in this one. Matt Llewellyn having a really tight ride, lifts the knee over the tarmac as they sweep through the chicane. Over the line goes Rob McElnea. It's John Reynolds now who's given up that second place. So into second has gone Haslam. And can Haslam now pull in the flying Yamaha? You know the Yamaha insides better than I do, Steve. Has the Norton got the speed?
Well, yeah, the Norton does have the speed. It's lighter and it has a smaller frontal area. Ron Haslam is a fairly small rider, and it's a very powerful engine, so I expect to see Ron making inroads on McElnea's lead on the straightaways, but I think Rob can hold his own, if not more, around the twisty parts. Interestingly, Matt Llewellyn doesn't have a screen on his bike. Now, that could slow his bike quite a lot. It'll also make it extremely hard to ride. Driving a motorcycle at 170 miles an hour with no screen. So I can only think he had a crash in the first leg, and this is why his screen's missing.
In which case, he's doing very well indeed. Haslam is now out on his own in second place. There's John Reynolds. It's still Matt Llewellyn. Ray Stringer is right in behind. So Haslam is on the charge. He's gone round in 97.42. Now that's quicker than we saw in the first leg. 1:12.13. So Haslam right off the and a faller there. 2 bikes down. In fact, they're just scrambling to get the stuff clear. 3 machines. So a regular tangle. And I can't quite determine which part of the circuit that was, Steve.
Yeah, that was as you go into the S's there. It was the tight part of the S's, so there's plenty of time to clear these machines up as the riders are coming up to see us on the main straight. So they've got time to move all those machines. Hopefully, no oil or petrol will have run out of that bike that was laying in the middle of the circuit. Now, number 6, John Reynolds has a problem. He's out. John Reynolds is out of the race. What tragedy for John Reynolds.
Well, that's bad news. Reynolds then, as the marshals put the cement dust, the traditional cement dust on the oil, which is spilled on the circuit, and get away just as quickly as they can, because the riders will be round any second, and here they come. It's McElnea skirting that patch of oil. In fact, it's off the racing line, so that's important.
Yeah, fortunately, the bike had slid up the track, and it was in the middle of the track, but not on the racing line, and not where the machines are banked over, so that won't cause anyone a problem, apart from the dust that will fly as they lay that cement dust on the oil to soak it up.
Matt Llewellyn, Ray Stringer, and number 5 right behind is Jamie Witham. So Jamie Witham with the knee out is having a good look at the inside, and for my money, young James is going to go past these 2 Yamahas. He's looking very positive, and he's got brand new confidence.
You can see there Matt Llewellyn with no screen, which would be a massive amount of wind resistance on his helmet down the fast straights.
Brian Morrison too behind Jamie Witham. Now, to say these 2 are arch rivals is probably a fair assessment, because if I can take you back to the 1988 and 89 championships, they were having ding-dong battles in Jamie's very early days when he was a mere 20 and 21-year-old in his first season with Mick Grant. And he and Brian Morrison were locked in tooth and nail scraps throughout the season. But just look now as Stringer goes past Matt Llewellyn. Ray Stringer from Nuneaton has gone past. Right with him now is James Witham. So I think you're quite right, Steve. The fact that he hasn't got a perspex is a definite handicap.
Yeah, it really does spoil the aerodynamics of the bike, and I'm very surprised that he started the race like this. I can't quite work this one out, but Stringer is through now, and he'll be keen to make inroads into Ron Haslam's lead that he has at the moment, which is 1.82 seconds. So Stringer's a bit of work to do to keep up with Ron Haslam at the moment.
Ray Stringer, the man who has twice qualified for the Suzuki World Cup Series, the thing which is run in Jerez by the Suzuki factory, and he's had a 5th in 1988, and he did very well also in 1989. He was runner-up in the World Cup final in Jerez. Oh, and an enormous twitch there, nearly pitched one of them off, but there's enough distance between for them not to get in each other's way. On the back straight, looking to pick up the leader. We found him into the S's, Rob McElnea, and noticeably closer now, Ron Haslam. He's pulled him in just a bit.
Yeah, it's very difficult to keep your pace up and to keep the concentration as Rob is in front. It's a lot easier for Ron, who can see Rob McElnea. It gives him some sights to set himself on, and he can see if he's closing yard by yard or even if he's losing distance. But Ron is fractionally closer, but Rob McElnea's doing a very, very good job of holding that position.
The 2 men at the front of the race, Steve, as you and I both well know, are former Grand Prix stars, and Ron Haslam many years on the Grand Prix circuit. What is it like? Is it a come down to come and compete in national competition after riding at that level?
Well, I think everyone has to accept there comes a time when you don't necessarily become too old to race, but you burn out some of the aggression that's required for right at the top level racing. But this superbike racing has become so close, especially the World Series, that the riders have had renewed enthusiasm. They can get on a motorcycle, on a Yamaha or a Norton or a Honda, and they can get out there and race competitively, as opposed to some of the Grand Prix machines now, which are well out of reach of the privateers or the smaller sponsored teams.
Well, as you're speaking there, I'm looking at Matt Llewellyn is not really dropping away at all from Ray Stringer, and the fact that with no perspex, the aerodynamics and the buffeting and the turbulence kicked up must be pretty hard for him to cope with, but he's doing a good job keeping the Yamaha ahead of Jamie Witham on the Suzuki. He's tucking down as low as he possibly can. It must be threatening to tear his visor off, I would have thought.
Yes, it'll be very uncomfortable riding without the screen. It's amazing how much that deflects the wind over your helmet, and that lad will have a sore neck tomorrow, I think, trying to force himself through the air.
Jamie Witham then right in the slipstream, and right behind Jamie Witham now, ever closer, is number 2, Brian Morrison from Kirkcaldy, the 31-year-old canny Scot who can always be counted on for a very reliable and a very steadfast performance, is right there behind Jamie Witham. And Witham is finding, I think, that Matt Llewellyn is just getting in his way a fraction. He's unable to get past him, but it's enough to stop Witham progressing at the speed he normally would, and as a result Morrison is right with them, and if they're not careful he'll have the pair of them. Jamie Witham running wide, very, very difficult. It surprises me, Steve, that he can't get that Suzuki past.
Yeah, well, the Suzuki is a little bit dated. It does have a good speed, as you can see, closed on Matt Llewellyn there, but the reason he closed was he was able to get in the slipstream, and he's gone through. So he got a tow, he got in the slipstream, Matt Llewellyn broke the air for him, and underneath he went as he went into the S's. So now I think you'll see Jamie Witham extend that lead he has over Matt Llewellyn.
Well, meanwhile, it's now Brian Morrison nibbling away at the back of Matt Llewellyn, and he's now well and truly the meat in the sandwich of these two. Witham with a great front-end twitch there again, but still Ray Stringer sitting very, very nicely and easing away from them. But Haslam has just turned in the fastest lap again. It's gone again. Stringer in a very comfortable third, might be able to snatch second, but he'll really have to pile on the coals if he's going to do it in the closing stages as he did in leg 1. Meanwhile, ahead of him, Haslam now has narrowed the gap between Rob McElnea and himself to 2.42 seconds. Well, I'm not going to ask the Yamaha boss to make a prediction, but it's looking as though it could go down all the way to the last lap.
Yeah, I think it could, but you're right, Ron Haslam has made the fastest lap. In fact, that's a new lap record. He takes the fastest lap away from Ray Stringer, who set it in the first leg. So Ron Haslam's turned a lap of 1:11.5 seconds, which is a second and a half faster than the times that were set here at this race last year.
Well, on the charge it is then. 34 years of age, Ron Haslam from Langley Mill, one of the most talented riders to come out of Britain for many, many years, and certainly one of the most respected and well known for his machine development technique. He's a very good man for putting on a motorcycle and diagnosing exactly what it needs to get it going well round a race circuit. But from a conversation I had with Steve Parrish just last night, the technology is such that that sort of rider may not be needed anymore. Number 2, Brian Morrison from Kirkcaldy, having a fairly steady ride, but he's a bit further down the order, I suspect, in 5th place than he would have hoped. Jamie Witham is right ahead of him, but he has at least got past Matt Llewellyn. Llewellyn, as you see, down to 6, so Morrison in the top 5. The battle, meanwhile, going on at the front between McElnea and Haslam, who has brought that gap down to 1.3 seconds now. So at the front, it's all beginning to happen. McElnea is now well and truly in the sights of Ron Haslam. Brian Morrison here in your picture, number 2, is in 5th. But at the front of the pack, the gap is getting closer as the race goes on. There they are visibly, well, nothing in it now. There's a tail ender, number 31 ahead, could give them a bit of a problem. That's Duncan Bailey from Rawcliffe. He is he's not in the way of McElnea. I was about to say he's in the way of Rob McElnea, but McElnea went round him very smoothly indeed. But the gap is under a second. The gap is under a second, and Haslam has pulled that back from 5 seconds. A remarkable feat, 2/3 distance. Can the Norton get past the Yamaha and stay there?
Well, Ron will have closed that gap down the straight, as we see now they're breaking into the S's. I think if he's going to pass McElnea, he's got to be on the straightway here. So I don't think we'll see a passing manoeuvre until we get back onto the main straight, because Rob is very fast through the S's here as they go into Corums and through the chicane. But that gap has closed dramatically, and Ron Haslam now is turning at 1:11.3.
Just half a second the gap, but it's visible. I don't have to tell you what the time is. He's right with him now. So it's not only a race between two riders, it's not only a race between two motorcycle manufacturers, but also rubberware comes into play, dare I say. The Michelin versus Dunlop battle, and that's been waged pretty well all of last season, not only nationally, but also in Grand Prix. Michelin, however, have withdrawn official factory support. Is that not true?
Yes, that's right. Michelin now just produce 2 different tyres, and they are available to virtually anyone that wishes to run Michelin tyres, whereas Dunlops are still putting a lot of effort, and a lot of development goes into their Grand Prix tyres, which is fed back into the Superbike level.
Well, I've got a sneaking feeling that Steve Parrish's prediction about Rob being able to hold on to this might well come true, because whatever Haslam does down the back straight, Rob McElnea undoes it coming around the tight bits. So tail enders again, but he's closing, he's right with him now. They're catching more traffic, and it's always a critical time. But the vast experience of the 31-year-old South Humbersider means that if anyone can find his way around the traffic, then Rob McElnea can. Haslam, however, is right with him. McElnea, number 8, sitting up, his huge form just filling the air behind that perspex, but he slots past the tail ender so smoothly. That's number 40, who's just had the fright of his life, and number 40 is Graham Ward on a Kawasaki, and you can tell that by the colour. Graham Ward from Backley, as the first and second place men go over the line.
Ron Haslam was very lucky then. He just managed to get in the chicane before that back marker. Had he not, then Rob would have got a major advantage, but Ron really left his braking late and got in there underneath the back marker. Rob will be extremely keen to keep that distance, because if Ron Haslam can just get in the slipstream, he needs to be 3 or 4 metres behind Rob to get a good effect from that. Rob's now used a back marker for slipstreaming, which will have dragged him through the air a bit better. He'll have gained a few miles an hour. That's perfect for him, but Ron Haslam's also got underneath.
Well, it seems to be anything you can do, I can do too, because Ron Haslam is going everywhere that Rob McElnea goes. They're both past that tail ender. Well, we may not have seen the last of Ron yet. He might just have something hidden away. We've got 3 and a fraction laps left to do now. They're on the back part of the circuit, coming round down towards the new chicane at Russell Bend. This is a very tight left-hander and a tricky one, and the Norton power is very savage. It has to be fed in quite carefully there to get it on tap, and up the straight they go. Ron Haslam is now as close as he's ever been.
Yeah, I think this could be the chance for Ron. If he closes under the braking here and just gets into Rob McElnea's slipstream, we could see him get past, but maybe Rob wouldn't be that disappointed, because he could have an all-out effort on those last few bends before the finish. Lap 18.
Well, the style of Rob McElnea commands all my admiration. He rode a superb first leg. He was challenged and he wasn't flustered. He was passed, but just look at that closing now, and it's Haslam. Haslam goes through at an almighty pace down towards the S's, and he throws the Norton in under very heavy braking, but he's got his nose in front now. Is it there? Well, it's certainly there, but is it going to stay there?
Well, I don't know. It's very difficult to say. Haslam will have the speed advantage on the straight, but if Rob could just stay in his slipstream and get onto the straight really quickly, then he has got the chance of making it up on these last few corners.
You are watching 2 masters at work. Look at McElnea having a look round at the S's, as much to say to Ron, he just showed in the front wheel there, as much to say, well, don't panic, Ron, I can get you when I want to, and I'm going to claw it back before the flag. But Haslam now has got something like 50 yards on McElnea going in towards Riches. They're down into 3rd gear around here. It might even be 2nd on the Norton, but 3rd certainly. Rob McElnea right with him still. They're braking hard again up to Sears. 2nd gear, 70 miles an hour. Now we'll see what happens. They're using all the track and more, nearly onto the dirt and the Norton just stretching away, and he's a little bit too distant for a toe.
Yeah, Rob wasn't able to get a run onto the straight to get in his slipstream, so he now has a fairly big advantage, and I don't think that Rob can make that back. The tight corners that we have in front, possibly as they go into the chicane for the last time, there is that one chance that Rob has.
A tail ender ahead of Ron Haslam. He's got to go the long way round, and he does, and that was just a little bit hairy, but they both went together. They're well round now, piling it on. Haslam and McElnea side by side, coming into those S's again. It's the Russell Bend, and they're up towards the start-finish straight. McElnea is right in the slipstream. Over the line one more time. Nothing between these two, just under 2 miles to do, and it's anybody's guess as to which one of these is going to get it. Now, Rob McElnea is going to have to stay very close, Steve. Take us halfway around the last lap.
Yeah, well, Rob needs to get a run out of this corner. Unfortunately, he went in there a bit quick and he had to shut the throttle. Now he needs to be as close to Ron Haslam as he can get to get the advantage of the slipstream. And again, he's not really within the right distance, so now he'll get a run up right close behind Ron Haslam as they go into the S's. I think if we're going to see Rob take this win, he'll do it as they go into the chicane for this last time. So he'll be as close as possible to Ron Haslam now. He'll follow him through Coram Curve, and then he'll make his move.
Well, just look how close they are. They're right up behind the tail enders now, and I hope no one gets in their way, because it would be nice to see Haslam get this one, but equally, what a brilliant race, whichever one of them wins it. What a brilliant race they've had, these two. Rob McElnea is as close. Now he's on the inside. He's going for it at the last gasp attempt. Steve Parrish is jumping with joy beside me. The Yamaha man played an ace card, and he gets the checkered flag, and Ron accepts defeat in a very gentlemanly fashion. He was beaten fair and square, and what a super ride by Rob McElnea for a double top. Ray Stringer then, number 17, third place, having a fairly solitary ride up towards the line, but he gets third. That's good enough for maybe even second overall, if there was an overall placing. 2 individual legs, remember. So he picks up 15 points to add to the 17 he scored in the first leg. But it's 40 maximum. Coming into the chicane, this is how Rob McElnea stole the win from under the nose of Ron Haslam, tucked it through on the inside on the right, and he was in front, and there was no looking back.
Great riding from Rob McElnea, and he's well in command of the overall competition with 40 points from Ray Stringer in second, 8 points behind, and a third place and a second place for Ron Haslam. That puts him third overall, with the next round at Donington on May the 19th. We'll have coverage of that.